PodCastle, episode 811 for Tuesday the 31st of October 2023. Apolépisi, a descaling, by Susan Palumbo, read by Shingai Enjeri Kagunda and produced by Devin Martin. Rated PG-13, with a content note for terminal illness. Good morning, good day, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to PodCastle, the flying castle of fantasy fiction. I'm your host, Matt Dovey, and it is my pleasure to present for your experience Apolépisi, a descaling, by Susan Palumbo, narrated by Shingai Enjeri Kagunda. This story was first published at Lightspeed in October 2022. Awards season has come to a close in the past week, and sadly there are no new trophies for us this year. But to be nominated for 3 major awards in a year, the British Fantasy, the Ignite and the Hugo, remains an incredible privilege, and we are not shy to the scope of that accomplishment. We don't take it for granted, and to be in a position to lose so many awards at once remains forever humbling. And so I just wanted to say, at the close of the season, thank you for your support and your consideration, and just for listening every week. It means the world. Susan Palumbo is a Trinidadian-Canadian speculative fiction writer who has been nominated for the Nebula, Aurora and World Fantasy Award. She also co-founded the Ignite Awards with L.D. Lewis. Her debut dark fantasy and horror collection, Skin Thief Stories, was published by Neon Hemlock in fall 2023. She loves all things gothic. Shingai Enjeri Kagunda is an Afrofuturist freedom dreamer, Swahili sea lover and femme storyteller among other things, hailing from Nairobi, Kenya. Shingai's short story, Holding Onto Water, was longlisted for the Nomo Awards 2020, and her flash fiction, Remember Tomorrow in Seasons, was shortlisted for the Fractured Lit Prize 2020. Her novella, And This Is How to Stay Alive, won the Ignite Award in 2022. She is also the co-founder of Voodoo Noughts, an Afrofuturist workshop for black writers. And now pay attention, for our tale is about to begin, and although you may not want to hear it, it is happening regardless.
Apolépisi, a descaling, by Susan Palumbo. I find Aleda's scale sticky with ichor, tucked between the tentacles of our pink anemone bed. I tweeze it out from the undulating appendages with my thumb and index finger and flounder against my escalating heart rate. Aleda's swishing back and forth, getting ready for work near the mouth of our cave. It's time for her to catch the current to the school where she teaches merlets the whisper of the sea. I love those muscleheads, she'll say when she returns and rests her hands on my shoulder later tonight. I'll swivel around and squeeze her so close a longing will bloom in my chest. Except this time, the need won't fade with the dwindling evening. It will deepen like a cavern and devour me. I should call out, show her the earned piece of her body that signals the end of our days together before she's off to the currents. Let's have this last carefree day. The thought crests and seals my mouth mollusk tight. When she's gone, I pretend it's the cold moment she's left forever and let desolation creep over me like the shadow of a shark. I found this on the bed. The scale glints like nacre on my fingers. Whose is it? Aleda asks. There's a hook in her voice. She knows my scales are octagonal, not teardrop-shaped like hers. I want it to be mine. I don't want to be the one left behind. She runs her hands over the curves of her chest and across her hips, searching. The remembrance of those intimate arcs under my own palms sends an electric wave through me. I can't find words from Raya, she says. Her eyes flood with uncertainty. She gulps a mouthful of water and filters it through her gills. I swim behind her, brush my hands across her knotted shoulder muscles and down the center of her back. How often have I ached to touch her like this, even after a night tangled in each other's fins? I don't want to find her bare flesh, acknowledge the change brewing within her and between us. It's here. I constrain the ripple in my voice and guide her hand above her left hip. She probes the soft outline of the missing scale with her fingertip. She flinches. Does it hurt? I put my arms around her and bury my face in her neck. A scale dislodges from her shoulder and spirals to the sandy floor. She presses against me. No. Bioluminescent dinoflagellates fill the cavern in Mother Mur's cave, where she and the Council of Aunties examine Aleida. The flagellate's glow illuminates the places on Aleida's body where her scales have slowed off. She's lost so many since we discovered the first. The aunties twist and turn Aleida for some time before they send us out of the room so they can confer in private. Aleida floats next to me, hands clasped in front of her as we wait for them to speak to us. A coral-sharp glint has replaced the dismay in her eyes. Mother Mur comes to us. Miniature sea stars spangle her body in an intricate spiral pattern, signifying her leadership of the complex. Her scales between them are lustrous, in defiance of her wisdom and age. The expression in her eyes is fractured like a broken shell. She wastes no time. It's Apolépisi, Aleida. We're sure of it. She pauses, letting the gravity of her words settle. What's going to happen? Aleida unclasps her hands as if to embrace the answer she's about to be given. You will lose all your scales. Your fins will detach, and your tail will separate into appendages. Mother Mur glances at me. Slowly, your gills will close. You will drown if you don't leave the water. I suck in sharply, cognizant of how effortless it is for me to breathe. Aleida doesn't miss a beat. The last time a member of the complex went through the transformation, she and I were merlets. How long do I have? The question, so precise and without a hint of fear, stings me. Until the cool currents arrive, Mother Mur answers. We can prolong your time with medicinal mixtures the aunties can grind by hand, but it will be painful. Your body is naturally... I don't want to prolong anything painful. Aleida's hands ball into fists. I don't want to fight who I am. No, you must do all you can to stay with me as long as possible. I want to cry. I strain against the desperation erupting inside me, but this is not about me. It's about her and what she wants and needs. A bubble escapes my lips. It drifts away from us. I imagine it filled with the life I'd planned. It bursts, leaving nothing behind. How'd they take it? Aleida's home from telling the merlets she won't be their regular teacher anymore. Well, she smiles. I told the muscleheads they'd see me again before I had to leave the water. Her hands are swaddled with seaweed to hide the skin the school council deemed inappropriate to leave exposed. There are shallow ruts on her stomach and arms where new scales have loosened. They are the exact size and shape of tiny webbed fingers. You let them hug you? I can't quell the disapproval in my voice. Why wouldn't I? She reaches for my arm and I pull away. Hurt flickers in her eyes. You don't want me to touch you? I shake my head, unsure of whether I'm saying yes or no. She studies my face in her hands and kisses me. My head spins in the rush of want, and I forget that each time we touch, I lose a part of her. Guilt surges back when she eases away to get ready for dinner. 2 of her scales have come off on the inside of my bottom lip. I press them to the roof of my mouth with my tongue, savoring their sweetness. I want to hold all of her inside me. Her laugh, her confidence, the mischievous look in her eye, her temper even. I can't contain her. Nothing can, not even her current physical body. I let the scales pass through my gills and join her to eat. I want to go to the Cayman Trench, she says a few days later. Why? I damn the word no inside my mouth. It's the deepest place I know, and it's warm. We should ask Mother Mur and the aunties if it's okay. What's the worst that could happen? We get separated and never see each other again? There's a dark smile on her lips beckoning me to laugh. We'll go, I say, ignoring it. We catch the circular stream down to the trench. Large patches of Aleda's scales have flaked away, exposing growing islands of smooth brown skin. An archipelago of it delves below her hip line, revealing the base of a cleft where her tail is separating into limbs. I've covered the flesh the best I can with grasses, but it isn't enough to stop other mer from twisting their faces at the scaleless stretches on her stomach and chest. What happened to you? A merlet asks at a dive where we stop to eat. I'm ascending, she says. A smile eases the bluntness of her confession. Oh, I'm sorry he's bothering you. The merlet's mother intervenes before the child can respond. He isn't, Aleda says. It's a relief to have someone see me. The merlet's mother nods curtly and hurries her child out of the dive. The Cayman Trench looms below us, its jagged walls ripping the ocean floor in two. Each year the canyon widens. In time, these walls will drift so far apart that visually there will be nothing left to connect them. Tourists dot its length, exploring its arches and hidden caves. The mood here is light and inquisitive. The trench is a fun family outing. Aleda swims ahead of me. I straggle behind, running my fingers along the layered shelves that make up the walls. They're covered with weeds, stars, and jewel-toned creatures. It's a trove of curiosities. Why didn't we visit before our time was limited? A hitch develops in Aleda's tail as if she's cramping. I catch up to her. What's wrong? I can't hold myself together, she whispers. I check underneath the grasses wrapped just below her hips. A fault mimicking the crevasse we're in has split the top half of her tail. A sheet of now translucent scales has separated and glides an ichor between my fingers and her flesh underneath. We need to go back now. I begin rewrapping her. No. She grabs my hands and squeezes my wrists. I'll go down without you if I have to, she says. Her stare lances through to the core of me. I bite my lip and gather more grass to bind her together as tightly as I can. Other mer make their way around us, grumbling about our blocking their way. How much time have we lost together because of her stubborn insistence on this trip? Would her tail have come apart so quickly if it had avoided the currents? I douse my bitter thoughts and help her down. We find an alcove in one of the walls when we finally reach the bottom and look up at the dim light filtering down to us. I want to stay with you till the last moment, she says. I don't want to watch you drown. I can't break the flow of words sloshing up my throat. I wish you'd slow down. I look away, not wanting to let her see my lost composure. Aren't you afraid? I add, trying to refocus on her. No, she says. I don't think about what's beyond the water. She holds my hand. Here, I'm the furthest away from the surface where I'll leave you. I wanted to know what that felt like. I turn back to her and kiss her temple. Scales scatter in the wake of my lips, For the first time, I don't count them. What happens above the water? I ask Mother Myr when I visit her to collect a balm for Aleda's raw skin. Her tail has disintegrated, and the flesh between the new appendages is delicate and irritated. 2 of her gills have closed, making it difficult for her to breathe. She can't remain below with us much longer. The surface is a skin between our world and another. No one has left and returned. Mother Myr's face is thoughtful. We have seen ghosts of those who've ascended, peering down at us in the place where they've left to. They remember, Raya, just like we do. Will it feel like death? Will it be like when we put pearls on our deceased's closed eyes and lay them with kelp laurels on the seabed? Will I dream of her? Mother Myr places the balm in my hands. It's reincarnation, she whispers. I rub the balm on Aleda's appendages. There are parts of her I don't understand or recognize. Hard joints bisect her lower limbs and bend like arms. Smaller ones have formed at the extremities of what look like flat flippers. That tickles, she says when I touch them. Then she holds my hand to the smooth folds where her new limbs join and gasps against the pressure. I don't pull away. I move with her, trying to memorize this new-to-me body that has always been inside her. Do you want a traditional blessing and party before you leave? I ask her while she's resting. I'd like the food, but not the ceremony. She smiles at me, and I let myself return it. Mother Myr, the aunties, and I prepare a feast like the complex has never seen. Oysters, shrimp, and vent-steamed octopus accompanied by seasoned kelp cover our tables. We invite everyone, even the Myrlets and their families from Aleda's school. The little ones hug and kiss her endlessly. If she had any scales remaining, they would have rubbed them away, climbing all over her. She laughs at the muscleheads, telling them how brilliant they are and how proud she is of them as they swirl and show her all they've learned since she's been away from them. After everyone leaves, her mood shifts. When we wake, it will be time. Her labored breathing makes me want to curl in on myself. I accompany her to the place where Mother Myr and the aunties have said those before her have ascended. It isn't grand like the Cayman Trench or a vibrant reef. It is shallow and drenched in light. A clear pool surrounded by rocks where the barrier between our world and the one above blurs. Aleda pauses as we near the surface. Come with me as far as you can? She barely chokes out the words. The great ball of light hangs above us like the lure of an oversized anglerfish. It's so bright. It's painful to look up through the water. Aleda hugs me. Her chest convulses as she draws water through what remains of her gills. Goodbye is in her eyes and in her touch that I want to feel forever. She can't say the word and neither can I. She kisses my cheek. I nod at her before she turns her back to me. She levers her limbs to grip the rocks and climbs out of the water. I swim up as close as I can and I squint. The aunties have warned me that breaking the surface would be fatal. She's there, looking at me, her face distorted by the waves lapping between us, more radiant than the ball of light. Her hand plunges into the water towards me. I clutch it and kiss her palm one last time. She lets go and is gone. I linger in the pool alone, staring at the spot where I last saw her, tracing the outline of her form in my memory. A teardrop-shaped scale floats above me. I leave it shimmering at the surface as I descend.
And welcome back. That was Apolépisi, a descaling by Susan Palumbo. And if you enjoyed that, there's a few more you'll love too. Episode 515 was Propagating Peonies, and 568 was Pull of the Herd. Susan's also popped up at Pseudopod a couple of times, with episode 718, Tara's Mother, and if I'm honest here, this next one is my favourite Susan story, even if it's not ours, episode 802, Laughter Among the Trees. Her first collection of stories just came out too, Skin Thief, and I can only recommend it in the very strongest terms. I am awful at goodbyes, especially the final ones. The idea of that irrevocable, irreversible change, the end of that chapter, the never getting to revisit this moment, this person, this version of who you are when you're with them. Death is the most obvious one, of course, and the obvious metaphor in this story, but in some ways that's easier for me. Death is the one truth, the inescapable and inevitable, and its bitterness is what makes life all the sweeter by contrast. And so in a way I find it a little easier to accept, because I know I have to go through it. But those times where you part ways with someone, when the path you shared for a little while diverges at the end of studies, at the change of a job, at the realisation you are different people now than you were when you met, and that the better thing to do is say goodbye and not look back, that is hard. That feels like there could have been another way, a way to hold on to them tighter, something more you could have done. But life is change, from the cellular to the social to the societal. And sometimes holding tight and refusing to let go only chokes what you love and hurts it. We have to let go and flow with the currents of time and tide, and simply make sure that we make the most of each moment as it's before us, such that when that goodbye comes, we know we did everything we could before it. We took as much sweetness as we could from life before that bitterness bites. As part of our 15th anniversary celebrations, we're asking you to send in your favourite stories from our archive. This week, an anonymous listener is recommending episode 763, Dying Rivers and Broken Hearts by Gabriella Buber, saying, "This story has wonderful prose. The opening line hooked me immediately. The imagery is lovely, evocative without being overwrought. I loved how rich and detailed the world building was and how seamlessly it was incorporated into the plot. The idea of witch arts is a great concept. I want to read so much more about this world and more from the author in general. Thank you." That was our show for this week. On behalf of everyone at PodCastle, your co-editors Shingai Enjoro Kagunda and Eleanor R. Wood, assistant editor Caitlin Zavanovich, audio engineers Devin Martin and Eric Valdez, and our many wonderful first readers, Andrew Cahoe, Craig Jackson, Amalia Harrington, Julia Patt, Kieran Corsini, Ryan Cole, Sarah S. Messenger, Sophie Barker, Shrikripa Krishna Prasad, Tarva Nova, Tierney Bailey, Zeev Witties, and myself, Matt Dovey. Thank you for letting us share another story with you. The legal bit. PodCastle is part of the Escape Artist Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can share it, and please do, but you cannot sell it and you cannot change it. If you want specifics, check creativecommons.org. Our music is by Shiva in Exile. Everything we do on PodCastle is 100% donor funded, and if you'd like to support what we and the rest of EA do, please join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/EApodcasts. Prefer another method? There's details for supporting us via Twitch, Amazon Prime, Ko-fi and PayPal on escapeartist.net. We'll be back next Tuesday with another fantastic tale. In the meantime, you might care to check out our sister podcasts, Escape Pod for science fiction, Pseudopod for horror, Cast of Wonders for YA speculative fiction, and Catscast for speculative cat stories. If your heart belongs to us though, we'll see you next week. Be safe and be kind.